Little Desert National Park in northwest Victoria is home to hundreds of species of native plants and animals. For tens of thousands of years, it's been a hunting ground for the Watchabullook peoples. When the government threatened to clear the land in the late 1960s, Victorians came together to protect this place so future generations could enjoy it. The campaign created a new organisation which has been protecting Victoria's beautiful environment for more than 50 years.
One of the first things I did when I started at Environment Victoria was take my young son Jack out to the Little Desert to see where it all began.
The Little Desert campaign was an historic moment for conservation in Victoria. It galvanised diverse groups to protect nature. The decision to create the Little Desert National Park was a major breakthrough in the way we look at land.
The campaign for the Little Desert was important because it was the first campaign of any sort which had caused a government to change its policy in relation to land management. Now, the vegetation of the Little Desert has reverted and is reverting to what it might have been before settlement.
The Grampians or Gariwerd National Park was declared in 1984. It had taken 5 years of energetic campaigning to achieve it. Shortly after I joined in 1979, the CCV, as it was then, had just released 2 reports to lobby for the Grampians National Park. The Grampians had had everything taken out of it by the Forest Commission and was ripe for National Park status. The Forest Commission was the real power body in land management in the state of Victoria at the time, and the Grampians was its jewel in its crown. Risks were really associated with intensive forestry, and I suppose one of the other risks was the manner in which the fire management was carried out. The Grampians was a major achievement for the conservation movement in the early 80s, and people who had been fighting for it for 30, 40 years were just amazed that it was finally successful.
In the mid-1990s, the Conservation Council joined together with 4 other conservation groups to form the East Gippsland Coalition to campaign for the protection of East Gippsland's magnificent forests. We won national park status for the Errinundra Plateau, the Roger Bowen and Cooperah Canberra areas. Massive area of forest in far eastern Victoria. Ancient shining gums, masses of rainforest, endangered species habitat. Westernport Bay is this incredible wetland sanctuary just 80 kilometres from the heart of Melbourne. Again and again, it's been threatened with massive industrial development. In the 1970s, there was a proposal for a nuclear power plant on French Island right in the middle of the bay, and the Conservation Council played a major role in stopping that going ahead. In the 1990s, Shell and Mobil wanted to turn it into an oil import terminal, and we worked with the local groups and fought them off. It was a really inspiring win.
Environment Victoria has been campaigning for decades to get more water back into our stressed river systems. Our first big success was with the Snowy River, when we persuaded government to return some flows to that stressed and desiccated river system. The campaign I've spent most time on is the Save the Murray campaign. In the mid-2000s, we were in the middle of the millennium drought and the rivers were really seriously stressed. There was an absolute crying need for action to change that. We worked long and hard to get the Murray-Darling Basin Plan passed and implemented, and it's got $13 billion worth of government funding behind it. Some of the best moments for me are when I've actually seen environmental water being delivered down the rivers, actually seen the benefit it brings, seen the fish that breed as a result, the birds that nest because we've got that environmental water. It's magic to see it actually happening. We're a long way from a perfect plan, but we've seen some real results for what's happened so far.
Environment Victoria is one of the first organisations around the country to take climate change really seriously. Way back in the 1970s, we were running campaigns to prevent new coal-fired power stations being built in Latrobe Valley. I came to the organisation in the mid-2000s, and one of the first things we did was organise really massive climate change protests, the Walks Against Warming, and we had 30, 40, 50,000 Melburnians turn out each year for those rallies. The longest standing campaign though was the campaign to replace Hazelwood Power Station, and we really put that on the map as one of the dirtiest power stations in the world, and had many trials and tribulations with that campaign over many years. But the 2014 mine fire, when the mine was on fire for 45 days, was a real turning point. We put images of that fire on postcards and managed to get them delivered to the French Energy Minister on French national television. And she made a statement which essentially was the moment when Hazelwood was decided to be closed. And as Hazelwood closed, Victoria's emissions fell by 10%, which made it one of the most profound things that we've done in this country to tackle climate change.
Environment Victoria has also run campaigns on sustainable transport, waste, recycling, energy efficiency, sustainable living. In the early 2000s, we ran Australia's first multicultural sustainable living education program, reaching people in 150 different languages. We translate individual action into political action, which is why every election, hundreds of Environment Victoria volunteers persuade thousands of voters to put the environment first at the ballot box. All of this, the success of Environment Victoria, is only possible because of the community of supporters that get behind us with their time, their passion, their dedication and their donations.